So Donald, how did you come to go to sea? You were only 15, very, very young, and it was through your uncle?
Yes, I was turned 15 in October, 18th of October, and I just left school. I decided to leave school, and I went for an apprenticeship as a toolmaker. I got the job to start in January, but during this period, between October and January, my uncle came home on the Macdhui, one of the trips, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I told him. He said, "No, you're not." He said, "You're coming to sea with me." So I was only 15, and he went down, took me down to the shipping office, and had a bit of an argument with the shipping master. He said
you
he's
were
too young.
Too young? Yeah.
Too young. So my uncle was very forceful. A big Jim, they used to call him. And he coerced the shipmaster to sign me on a year older. So officially I went away at 16. But then years later, I was going to go for a second mate's ticket, and I had to drop my age. So it all turned around, you know.
How was your relationship with Uncle Jim on board? Did he treat you just as an ordinary sailor, or?
Hardly saw him even, like it just, if I was passing him, or they'd say, "How you going, lad?" You know.
And you'd call him Uncle Jim?
No.
What would you call him?
Sir.
Sir.
No, yeah.
And he gave you no special privileges?
No special duties, no. I used to drive the launch. The launch take passengers ashore. Because in those days there was only a couple of places where there was a wharf all around New Guinea and the islands. And we used to do about 20 odd ports. A lot of them were only beaches, like plantations. And they'd send the launch ashore with a couple of big surf boats we used to carry, with cargo for that place. They'd take the cargo out, put copper in, and I'd tow it back to the ship. They'd put the copper in, put cargo in it, and I'd take it back ashore again. And this kept going all day and all night in different places.
Now tell me, there were two voyages that we're dealing with here. The first voyage was in 1941, when the Macdhui went up to Port Moresby, got hit by a bomb, but managed to get back again to Sydney. Were you on that voyage too? There were two of them. Then there was the 1942 voyage, when she went up and got bombed and sunk.
No, I was...
You weren't on the first voyage?
I don't think she was bombed before.
Yeah, she got one bomb on her in that...
yeah, the first day she got one bomb.
Ah, so she wasn't bombed in that 1941 trip?
No.
Okay.
No,
so,
she got one bomb the first day, and the next day she got 4 bombs.
That sank her, yeah.
And they run her up on the reef to make sure everyone got off.
Yeah.
But I was the last one off because I was in the main guns crew, and the bomb hit the poop, blew the gun off, and killed them all up there.
And blew you along the deck?
And I got blown down onto number 5 hatch. And I remember all the noise and...
Oh no, let's come to that later.
Right.
Tell us about life on board the Macdhui going up. I believe you had a saloon, a ballroom, you had an orchestra, you had all kinds of luxuries for the passengers. Tell us a bit about your life going up to Port Moresby on the Macdhui.
What, when I was young?
Yeah, you were a deck boy, weren't you?
I was a deck boy, yeah.
What was a deck boy? What did they have to do?
Well, the deck boy, he looked after the carpenter and the bosun, give them their meals and that. All the dirty jobs around the place, cleaning everything up. When I was in port, I was going into port, I was put in the launch, lowered over the side, run the lines ashore, and in the other ports where there was no wharf, because I ran the surf boats, we used to carry 4 surf boats and a big launch. And that was my main job, to look after the launch.
Where did you sleep?
Oh, we had the cabin.
Yeah, which one? There are a lot of cabins along that main deck of Macdhui. Were you in one of those, or were you in the rear or the forecastle?
When I started off, we were all in the forecastle, up forward. Down in the mess room was on the main deck, and we were down below, forward, right in the bow of the ship.
Okay. How many of you?
Well, there was a deck boy, ordinary seaman, 10 seamen, or a dozen seamen, and half a dozen oilers for the engine room, all down there. And we had double bunks like, but it's quite comfy, but very noisy with the anchor chains.
Yeah.
In the spurling pipes, as the ship would roll, bang, bang, but you got used to it.
Did you have hammocks?
Huh?
Did you have hammocks or bunks?
Oh, no, bunks.
Proper bunks.
Proper bunks.
In my research, I discovered that there, amongst the passengers, amongst the crew, you had something like 18 waiters, stewards. Let me see.
Oh, she carried a lot of passengers. She was.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you think about having a ship's manifest that has? I'm trying to find the actual list. Here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 first grade stewards.
Yeah.
For how many guests would you need to have such a crew as that?
Well, they weren't on the ship when it was bombed.
Weren't they?
No.
Well, where did the
Because,
ship's manifest list them all?
Yeah, that was earlier, but they weren't on the ship. There was a few stewards because she wasn't carrying passengers during the war.
No, that was one of the problems, wasn't it? They couldn't get passengers.
The last trip we had, we had nearly 200 soldiers.
Yeah.
From Townsville across to Moresby.
Yeah. Now there were 2 other deck boys, weren't there? One was called Alan Goss. Did you know Alan Goss?
Alan Goss, yes.
Yeah, he was your age.
He was a deck boy with me, yeah.
Yeah. Were you friends?
Huh?
Were you friends? Were you friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were both deck boys on.
And was there another deck boy?
That was him and myself.
That's all. Okay.
And then there was an ordinary seaman.
Right. Okay.
He was Fred Mushins. He ended up an officer later on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see his name here. It's a big crew, isn't it, for the size of that vessel? They had this very luxurious situation for passengers. As I was saying, they had a music room, they had a state room, and so on. Did they have dances and things like that on board? Yeah, yeah. And did you crew ever get to dance with the passengers?
Oh, no.
Would it be conceivable in this movie that Captain Jim would have danced with any of the passengers?
Oh yes, quite all the officers would.
The officers would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were about
entertain the passengers, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're on this voyage going up to New Guinea, and one of the passengers falls overboard.
Yeah.
Her name, I just told you her name.
I'm not sure whether that was before the war or during the war. There, I can remember we were coming across the Coral Sea, and it was as flat, calm as a mill pond.
Yeah.
And she used to do about 15 knots. So we went for, I don't know, 3-4 hours, and there she was noted as missing.
Now, how did that come about? Did the captain discover that she was missing, or how would that have happened?
Well, the stewards must have told the captain there was someone missing.
Someone missing.
They might have missed her at lunchtime, or I forget what, I know it was daytime.
Yeah.
And anyway, they turned the ship around, and he went back on the same course, like a reverse course. And they had people everywhere look out.
17 miles you went back.
Oh, more than that.
Was it?
Oh, yeah. And I said, there's something in the water ahead. And they nearly ran into her.
Oh. And she was still alive after
still
2 or 3
alive,
hours in the
just
water.
still burnt. She was burnt, but still alive. And we picked her up and brought her back to Sydney.
And how would you have picked her up? Sorry to be persistent about details, but how would you stop the ship and send a boat out to get her, or what would you do?
Yeah, they put the launch out.
Right.
Put the launch out. There were a couple of, we had doctors on board, of course, and we picked her up and brought her to the gangway. And then we lifted her, well actually we lifted her up on the, I think she came up with the launch. But I can remember now when they lifted the launch up.
And she'd be unconscious, I suppose.
No, she was still alive, but very drowsy and all burnt.
Burnt in the
where
sun.
She was just laying in the water,
Yeah.
floating.
That was a remarkable feat of seamanship, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You know, for a captain in that huge ocean,
Yeah.
to retrace his steps for, how many miles do you reckon it was? It says 17 here, but you reckon it was more
I'd
than
say it was a couple of hours, I'd say at least 30.
30. Fantastic. So we're going up to New Guinea on board. How would you spend your time?
Oh, we had plenty of work to do. But, we had plenty off time. I used to play, they wouldn't let me take me violin aboard.
You played the violin?
I played the violin, yeah.
Fantastic.
And I was pretty good too. But
now that's something
the crew
that's
said,
never
no,
been recorded."
you're not bringing that thing aboard here. So I went to getting the guitar, and I was getting lessons on that. And had a mouth organ and,
Would you entertain the others by playing to the others?
yeah.
Yeah. What sort of stuff did you play on the violin?
Oh, I played anything.
Did you?
Yeah,
Sort of like a
I
country
played
fiddle?
in a solo in the town hall at Randwick.
No. That's never been written about you.
I was about, 14 then.
Wow. Who was your teacher? Do you remember?
Oh, I can't remember her name.
Just a local person.
Local teacher, yeah.
Wow.
And she's the one that taught me the guitar afterwards.
And so you didn't take your violin on board,
No, they wouldn't let it, no.
but you had a guitar.
Because a lot of Scottish crew, and they used to chew tobacco and smoking pipes, and they turned me right off. I never ever smoked in my life.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never.
Not even all that. All the others were smoking.
Yeah, they were smoking and chewing this twist tobacco.
Did Uncle Jim smoke?
Oh, yeah.
Did he?
Everyone used to smoke up there. It was just something to do, I think.
Was Uncle Jim's wife alive all during the war?
Oh, yes.
She lived till after the war,
Oh, yeah.
and they had 4 children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your brother, his brother, was your father.
No.
His,
My father and Uncle Jim were not related.
Really?
They married sisters.
Ah.
They married 2 sisters of the Macdhuis in Scotland, and they just happened to be both Campbells. He came from Tyree, And my father came from Skye, the Isle of Skye.
God, I'm glad I asked you that. That's good stuff. Now, while you were all cavorting around and enjoying yourself on that trip, the news came through that the Malabar had been wrecked. Is that right, or was that much before?
Oh, that was before.
Okay, so tell us about the wreck of the Malabar. Before you go, I've got the impression that it might have been a bit of a conspiracy, because Burns Philp had ordered the making of the Macdhui, and they weren't getting any passengers or cargo enough, so they wanted to cancel it. But the Scots wouldn't let them cancel, of course, held them to it. And then there was a theory that they wrecked the Malabar to get the insurance money to pay for the Macdhui. What do you think of that?
Oh, I don't know. I never heard anything like that.
You didn't? Conspiracy theory, huh?
All I know about the Malabar was that it was blowing the whistle, the ship's whistle and that, and you could hear it all over the place. And I'm not sure whether it came over the radio or what, but my father said, "Come on, we're going to go out to Malabar. There's a ship gone aground." So we went out there not long after she went aground.
Yeah.
And she was just sitting there looking pretty, but she was wedged right in, because she would have been doing 15 knots too.
Yeah.
And she got wedged right in the rocks. Because when the seas come up a bit later on, the ship was rolling, but the bow wasn't moving.
So
it ended
really
up
stuck.
breaking in half.
Yeah. Can I give you another conspiracy theory about the wrecking of it? It was in charge of 2 Malayan quartermasters. Captain Leslie was having a beer downstairs and one of the pilots gave the signal to starboard the helm. Instead of steering 5 degrees to starboard,
He went to port.
he went to port. Now the theory was that in the old days, that was how it worked. If you wanted to go starboard, you took the helm to port to go starboard. At the trial, at the investigation of this incident, the Malayan pilot said, "Oh, we thought it was to go port. We were confused." What do you think about that?
No, well, the Malabar and the Malabar and the Macdhui, if you put the helm to starboard, you went to starboard.
Oh, okay.
And
On the Malabar too? On the Malabar too?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they were modern ships. It's like I was on the Duntroon where we cut the American destroyer in half,
Yeah, that was an amazing incident.
and I was at the wheel there.
You poor bugger. Did you get into trouble over that?
No, they tried to blame us, but the blame ended up with the skipper of the destroyer.
The American boat.
Yeah,
Good.
because they used to say left and right.
That's right. Much clearer,
There
wasn't
was no port and starboard.
it? No. Okay.
And she was on our starboard bow, coming this way. And when the officer of the watch, there's only 2 of us on the bridge, he said, "I'll go up and take a bearing." He took a bearing. And next thing he jumped down, he said, "Jesus, Don, hard of port, Don, hard of port." And I whacked the wheel hard of port. But she went to starboard. And come right across, and we went right between the 2 funnels.
You cut her in half, and then
Yeah.
she sank.
She didn't sink, she sank, she was wrapped around our bow. And we got all the seamen off, there's about 9 killed on it, that they were in the engine room, they couldn't get out. Because we went right through the engine room, like, you know. We must have blocked all the exits off. And they were still alive, but they had to go down with it.
Well, you lost about 7 or 8 men.
9, I think.
We got off the track a bit there, How did you find life on board the Macdhui on that voyage up? Were you
Oh, no,
happy? Was it a good ship?
oh, beautiful ship.
Mm.
Yeah, beautiful. No, I used to like going to sea, especially up the islands. Well, my first trip up, when I was deck boy, we had a cyclone in the Coral Sea. Oh God, I got sick. I thought I was going to die, and I said, "This is not for me." But once we got up the islands and all the nice calm weather, and you know, and I changed my mind when I was driving the launch around, and
God,
because
you're
then I
amazing
stayed
at
at
that
sea all
age
my
to
life.
be doing all that responsibility at that age must have been amazing. Listen, tell me about Captain Campbell had a run-in with Burns Philp about the fact that there were Japanese spies everywhere in Sydney, and they knew the comings and goings of the boat like clockwork, and they were telling Japan in Tokyo, they were in touch with Tokyo, told them exactly the time you left, where you were going and what port and when you arrived and where you docked.
That's right.
So Campbell said, for God's sake, give us some protection. Your boat didn't have any protection until
No, none at all, no.
And what happened? They put a 12-pounder on board or something?
No, they put a 12-pounder and a couple of machine guns, and well, 2 303s, 2.5s, one on each side of the bridge, and the 12-pounder.
Which was useless because the planes were flying at 20,000 feet and it only had a range of 700 yards or something, didn't it?
Well, before the Japs come in, we got chased by a German raider.
Ah, good. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, we got chased by a German raider, but we were faster. We got away from her, and we went into Madang, but we had an aerial escort that trip. It was a short Sunderland flying boat, the RAF, and she was with us anyway. She landed in Madang Harbour too, the plane. But then the German raider came up outside. Well, she wasn't going to come in because it's a very narrow passage coming into the harbour. And if she'd have got in, there was hardly any room for her to turn around to get out. So they were out there for a couple of days. And I remember, I was only a young kid, and I used to go aboard this plane. And I said, why don't you get out there and drop a few bombs on them, get rid of them? They said, we're not allowed. He said, we've got to wait and get orders from Canberra.
Bloody hell. Bloody hell.
Because when the orders come through, the Germans would have got them as well. And when they took off to go out, German raider was gone. And then not long after that, we went to Koviang, and they've got a message that there was, from the Germans, that they dropped a lot of passengers off, survivors off ships, those British ships they were sinking, the phosphate ships. They dropped them on Emeroo Island, right up near the equator. So they sent the plane up there to have a look, and they said, yes, there's people on the beach there. There's no ship around, so we went up from Koviang. Went up there and picked them up, brought them back to Australia.
Why do you think, Don, Burns Philp and the US Army was involved too, wasn't it? Well, the US Navy and the Australian Navy. Why do you think they didn't give Macdhui any protection?
Well, the Yanks didn't come in till just 6 months before.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
But, well, I was on some of the cargo ships on the coast, and they have 4.7s.
Quite adequate.
Yet the Macdhui that was going to a vital area up around New Guinea, she had this 12-pounder.
Mm.
And it's only good for a couple of miles.
Were you ever aware that there were spies in Sydney? You would have been too young.
We knew.
Eh?
We knew.
Yeah.
You go to the hotel there, the Ship Inn, down at the quay, and everyone there know exactly what, they know more about than we did.
Did you ever see
The barmaids used to say, even when I was on ships later on, like I'd be on the Duntroon troop ship, and we'd go down. That's where I started drinking then. 'Cause I thought, well, I'm going to get knocked off, so otherwise I'll never drink with them. So you go into the Ship Inn, and the girls would tell you where you were going, when you were going, and we never even knew when we left port where we were going.
God. No wonder he had that fearful row with BP in their boardroom with all the board members around, and they all just laughed when he left the room. They couldn't, they were never going to give you protection, BP.
Well, we got no air protection up in New Guinea either.
No.
Like, there's no fighters went up there to break up the formation or anything.
No.
And the ACAC couldn't reach them.
So just a sitting duck, weren't you? Yeah. Did you ever learn how to use a Bren gun?
Yeah, I had machine guns and everything, yeah.
Did you? And you were 15.
Yeah.
Just tell us briefly about the Jap subs that got into the harbour in Sydney, Don. That, you reckon that was in the wake of one of the ships you were on? Is that right?
That's right. We were in a convoy from Melbourne to Sydney. There's quite a few ships in it. They were going up north. But there's 3 ships peeled off in Sydney on the Sunday night, 31st of May. And we come in, it was dark, because when the ship comes in, they're only doing about 5-6 knots, very slow, because it only did 10 knots flat out. But I was on the Carradale, and we came in, and we saw the Chicago there, the big American cruiser, and actually the Perkins was the one we sunk later. She was there too, because she was the escort for the Chicago. And we came in, went down to Walsh Bay? No, down to Darling Harbour, Patrick's Wharf, with Patrick's ship. And we could hear a lot of noise going on, but nothing else. And when I got home, my mother said, the Japs are in Sydney Harbour. I said, we just come in. But they must have, the Japs had 3 big subs there with these midget subs on. Those midgets were big, and they had each one, but they must have seen the convoy go past.
Yeah.
They must have already launched the midgets off, so they couldn't do anything.
They had to do their mission, and they just sunk a ferry boat. That was all they got, wasn't it?
That's all they got. They missed the cargo.
Yeah, the cutter ball. Yeah. Well, look, there's so many things I want to ask you, Don, but I think we should get to the day, and that fearful couple of days you spent. When you can talk about it just as much as you want, but when we get to it, Campbell was very badly wounded, wasn't he?
What?
Captain Jim was very badly wounded.
Oh yes, he nearly lost his hand.
Yeah, and he went to a hospital. And where did you go? You must have been wounded too. Now look, I'm jumping ahead. Why don't we start about the bombardment in Port Moresby? Were you aware that something like that might happen to you?
Oh yeah, you always you knew something was going to happen. Because I mean, the merchant ships they had mines. So a lot of the ships on the coast that von Luckner, he was visiting Sydney, but no one checked his so-called big yacht out. But it was a mine layer.
Wow.
And he came out here and he dropped all mines all down along the coast, right down as far as Melbourne.
Who was the Lucknow? Who was the guy in charge of the Lucknow?
Von Luckner, he was some big German. He was down here just about when the war, just before the war started. He big noting himself, and because no one checked his ship out or anything else, and because he supplied up here in Sydney and everything, they went out, laying all the mines, and no one knew anything about it.
I've never heard that story.
Next thing, all the ships started getting sunk, and
They were running into these bloody mines.
And he was gone. He was.
Do you remember how to spell his name?
Oh, I don't know. I'd say V-O-N.
Von Lucknow.
Luckner. L-U-C-K-N-O-R, I think. Or Luckner. Or, that's as far as I know. And,
Geez, I'll follow that story up. That's a beauty. So you had to avoid them all for a start. You knew they were there though, did you? The mines?
well, you never know where the mines are.
So you've got to keep a watch out up ahead.
You can't see them because they're anchored down 10, 15 feet under the water. And it's only when the ship hits one of them, goes off.
Wow. Okay, so tell us about the fatal bombing in 1942.
Well, we got to Moresby on the 15th of June.
Yeah.
And on the 16th, the Japanese fighter plane came over, probably checking out, but they'd been after the Macdhui before, but only like single bombers and other bombing raids. But this day, about 9:30 in the morning, we just finished breakfast, just starting work again, and the sirens went for the air raid, you know. So we didn't know what was going to come over or anything, but they'd been working all day and all night because we had a lot of ammunition and stores, and then the ship was all full of aviation fuel. Like 44-gallon drums.
For the aircraft.
In each hatch.
Yeah.
For the aeroplanes, you know. Anyway, the alarm goes, so we're all to action stations. Let the ship go. Actually, the first day, we were anchored out. And we had big barges alongside, and the army were putting these drums onto the barges. And when the raid come on, or they wanted to put all the soldiers, my uncle wanted all the soldiers off the ship and, you know, put that on the barges. But they wouldn't, they all stayed on the ship. Well, luckily, like the first day, we only got one hit. They came over, 18 bombers, 6 or 8 fighters. You couldn't see the fighters, of course. But they're all in formation, and the ack wasn't even reaching them. And they just come over and they just dropped the whole lot on us. And she only got one hit, because we were moving, not fast, but we were moving. And it went right through Monkey Island, through the bridge, boat deck, saloon deck, main deck and burst down in the main saloon and killed everyone down there. There was a few soldiers down there. I think they were officers.
And your ship's doctor was there too, wasn't he? Tunstall.
Huh?
Tunstall, the doctor, was there too, wasn't he?
Yeah. He had a. That was a medical station. He had a medical station there. But because when the bomb went off down there, it just blew the guts out of the ship. But nothing else was damaged. The engine was all right and everything. So the uncle, he wanted to take the ship back to Sydney, and they wouldn't let him. They said, no, we need the fuel, we need everything. So we came back to the fire started, and the chief officer at the time, he was relieving my uncle, and him and I put the fire out.
Wow.
Well, I was the first one down there and got him to send the hose down, and he came down and we got the fire out and put all the bodies out. And then they got back to work, took it back to the wharf, and they started unloading again all day, all night. And then 9:30 the next day, the siren went again. The same bombers came back again.
But there were more this time, weren't there?
No,
No?
same 18.
Okay.
Must have been the same ones that came over the first day. But they just got, I reckon they just got these new German bomb sites, because they were allies with Germany.
Right.
And the raiders were going up to Japan, getting fuel and storage and all that. And I think they got these new bomb sites and were trying them out, because they was the first high-level bombings
Bomb attack.
on ships like that. And then the next day, when they came over, we got 4 hits. 3 right amidships again. 1 down number 3 hatch, that was the one that set her on fire, with all the fuel down there.
Yeah.
And there's 2 landed near the bridge. And that's from Uncle. He got a lump of shrapnel through his wrist, nearly lost his hand. And I was in the main guns crew aft. We couldn't do anything there.
You must have been scared shitless.
Well, it gets to the stage where you're not scared, you just wonder what's going to happen next, you know. Anyway, I had all this noise going on and we're around the gun, and the bloody bomb hit the poop, blew the gun off, killed everyone there. I don't know where I was, but I got thrown down on number 5 hatch. I don't know why I didn't get hurt much there.
How far was that, Don? In feet?
Oh, it'd be about 20 feet.
God.
I come down. Luckily the hatch covers were on that one. And I must have been knocked out, of course. And when I came to, the ship was all on fire, and I had to look up, and all the boat davits were out, all the boats had gone. And I'm looking around and I thought, yeah, I'll go up on the poop and see what's going on. And all I saw one steward there, but he had a big hole in him like that. He was still alive. And I said, hang on, I said, I'll get some help. And there was a RAF boat circling the ship. And I yelled out to them, and because they had a couple of medics there, and I told them, I said, this bloke up here, I said, I can't shift him. I said, he got it badly wounded. Anyway, they got him down in the launch, and that's how I ended up with the RAF. All the rest of the crew were with the army, and I was with the RAF.
But what about you, Don? You must have been very badly wounded too, falling 20 feet.
No, I was a tough I was a tough little critter, but I don't know whether he aches and pains or not, I don't know, but
Until 5 minutes. Yeah, and then that guy died, didn't he? That
oh yeah, he died the next day.
yeah, and Macdhui was your uncle was very badly wounded too, wasn't he?
Yes, he was in the hospital and they were talking about cutting his wrist hand off. Because it was only hanging by a couple of muscles or something. And this American doctor said, "Who's that bloke?" And they said, "No, that's the captain of the ship." And they'd look at him, he said, "No," he said, "we can save that."
Oh.
And they did.
They stitched it
Did
together.
a good, yeah. So when after the Macdhui, the Burnsville, and he offered the uncle a small ship, and he said, "Oh, below you." So he went as a Torres Strait pilot,
Yeah, I understand.
and he
that
stayed
story.
there the rest of his life.
Right. And I believe Burnsville said they were going to pay you £20 each as compensation. You got some compensation, I believe, didn't you?
Yeah, £20. Yeah,
You got £20.
yeah.
Well, Alan Goss told me he never got his, and none of his mates got it either.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know what happened to Alan, but
Was he hurt during that attack?
What?
Was he hurt in the bombing, Alan?
well, I didn't want to say this, but he shot through. When on the wharf, there's a few blokes shot through with all the soldiers when they all raced away when the alarm went, and Alan was one of them.
Oh, Don, that's a very sad chapter.
That was the second day.
How
Yeah,
many of them would have done that?
I don't know, but I know Alan. I know Alan went.
He never wanted to tell me his story. That's probably why. Okay, this is the last bit, Don. You're all there. You're shattered. The whole bloody thing's a mess, and they ship you all back to Sydney. Tell us about that terrible trip back in the train.
Well, we had to wait a couple of days for a ship to take us to Townsville. So this Dutch ship came in, the Swantenholm,
Swantenholm, yeah.
and we were all put aboard there. There was other people there with us. I don't know how many were there, but because I was still a bit dizzy, I think. But when we got aboard the ship, it used to carry troops, but they used to carry them down the hatches on hammocks. And the skipper says, "Down there, down, down." And we said, "Up you," like, you know. We had a hell of an argument there. So we all slept on deck.
Because you were wounded, most of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a bastard
We
to
were-
try and get you.
oh yeah, they were very abrupt, the Dutch, very
Yeah.
abrupt. But anyway, we slept on deck and got to Townsville, and then the first aid and the seaman's mission gave us some clothes because all we had was a pair of shorts and a singlet. That's all I had. Because it was winter time,
Yeah.
and I lost all my gear and everything. And so they gave us some clothes, and then we got the train from Townsville to Brisbane. And then had another train from Brisbane to Sydney.
Wow. That must have taken you ages.
And then they gave us a couple of months off. And then it was during this time that my uncle said, "Why don't you go for your ticket now? You got time and everything." And I said, "I don't feel up to it." I said, "My eyes are crook." You know, everything was red. For a couple of weeks, it was red, everything was red. And I said, I can't see properly. He said, oh, he said, you'll get through. So I got the ticket, but I couldn't pass the eye test. Well, we complained and put a complaint in to London, had to go to London, and they gave me the opportunity to have another eye test, but they gave me the confetti book. And I couldn't see any numbers in that at all. So that was the finish of that.
Ah.
So I used to teach the young kids navigation when I was on the ship, and about 4 of them ended up skippers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were still only about 17 when it finished.
Oh, no, well then, I was about, 18. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very good at figures and maths.
And you played the violin. What was your favourite tune?
Huh?
What was your favourite tune on the fiddle?
Oh, I don't know now.
No, give us one. You must have had a lot.
I know the guitar, I used to like all the Hawaiian music.
Oh, yeah.
There was a big thing in those days. But, yeah, no.
Don?
Oh, I've had a pretty good life, I've had a few ups and downs, but because then when the war was nearly finished, we went up to Moritai on the Bananda hospital ship, and we took 350 women up there, nurses, MWAs, everything, and building a hospital up there in Moritai.
Ah.
And we were waiting for the invasion of Tarakan, Borneo. And when the invasion started, we went in the next day. I think it was the next day, and we were getting all the wounded, walking wounded off the beach. They come straight out the ship, and they had medics in each lifeboat, and they'd yell out which deck to go to. They'd operating theatres on 3 decks, and they'd yell out them up the top, number 4 or number 3 or number 2 or whatever, and they taking the board and operating on straight away.
Mm. Don, what's it feel like to be the last survivor of the Macdhui?
Oh, I don't know. I've been on a lot of ships since, and I know all my mates, they're all gone. I've got no mates left. My last 2 good mates, they died a month ago. Yeah.
Don, hold your medal up with pride while Ravel finishes the interview, huh?
Just look into the camera and hold your medal.
I'll turn it over that side, Oh, I don't know.
And hold it up. You got it?
Which side do you want? That one, that's...
Either side.
Huh?
Either side's fine. Can you hold it in your hand?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Give us a smile. Perfect, man.
Hold it, Ravel.
Okay. Great.